I shouldn't have noticed her the way I did. But the truth is, the moment she leaned closer, just to see what I was doing with her laptop, I forgot what I was supposed to fix. Her perfume hit first. Not too strong, just warm, like vanilla and something deeper I couldn't place. My hands hovered over the keyboard, frozen, while the glow of the screen lit her face in soft gold. She was my mom's friend. Older, sure, mid-40s maybe, but there was nothing casual about the way her presence swallowed the room. She stood just behind me at first, then moved closer, her hand resting on the table near my elbow. That slight brush of her sleeve against my arm sent a current through me I couldn't hide. "You're quiet," she said. Her voice was calm, but underneath it, something teased, like she already knew why I couldn't look up. "I'm just trying to figure this out," I muttered. Except I wasn't looking at the laptop anymore. I caught my reflection in the dark edge of the screen, her silhouette bending over me, her hair falling forward. She leaned in further, pointing at the corner of the screen. "There, that's the thing giving me trouble." But her finger brushed mine by accident. Or maybe not. She didn't pull away quickly enough, and when I finally looked up, her eyes were already waiting. Longer than they should have been. It was ridiculous, how the air changed in seconds. The living room was quiet, too quiet. The hum of the ceiling fan above seemed suddenly loud. I swallowed, pretending to focus, but my hand trembled slightly as I clicked. She noticed. I knew she did, because her lips curved into the faintest smile. Not mocking, almost curious. "You're good at this," she said softly. I shook my head, my throat dry. "Not really. Just trying not to break it more." Her laugh was quiet, low. It warmed the space between us. "You're the problem I don't want solved," she whispered, so lightly I wasn't sure if she meant me to hear it. The words lodged somewhere in my chest. I couldn't reply, couldn't even think. My pulse hammered as I realized how close she was now. The heat of her body just inches away, the soft brush of her hand on the table moving nearer to mine, deliberate this time. For a second, nothing existed except that nearness. Her perfume, her voice still echoing in me. The way her gaze lingered on my mouth before flicking away. I wanted to say something, anything, but my tongue wouldn't move. She filled the silence herself, tilting her head with that same calm smile. "Don't look so nervous. It's just a laptop." But we both knew it wasn't just that. My fingers tightened on the mouse, hers hovering beside them. That small space between us shrank until it felt like the whole house must notice. Every second stretched, every breath caught in my chest, until finally, a sound shattered it. The creak of the front door opening. Voices outside. Footsteps. She straightened instantly, as if nothing had happened, though her hand lingered one heartbeat too long before pulling back. "Later," she said, her tone light, but her eyes giving her away. And then the footsteps grew louder. Someone was about to enter. The door had barely closed behind the voices when silence returned. She stood a few steps away now, composed again, as though the moment between us had been nothing more than a pause in her day. But the air hadn't cleared. If anything, it was thicker. I tried to distract myself with the laptop, clicking through menus I didn't really care about. But I could still feel where her hand had lingered. My own palm itched with the memory of her nearness. "You're good with this stuff?" she said casually, moving to sit across from me. Her tone was light, but her eyes held on to me longer than her words did. I shrugged. "Not really. Just spent too many nights fixing my own." That earned me a softer smile, one that looked almost tired. Better than me. I always end up making things worse. There was something in her voice that wasn't about computers. A quiet weight. I noticed the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, not unkind but lived in, like she'd smiled through years and sighed through just as many. "You ever think some things aren't meant to be fixed?" she added. Her gaze dipped to the screen, but her words landed somewhere else. I swallowed, unsure how to answer. It wasn't about the laptop. I wanted to ask what's broken, but the question felt too heavy. Instead, I said, "Sometimes you just need patience. Give it time." Her eyes flicked back to mine, steady and searching. For a moment, neither of us looked away. I didn't know much about her past, only bits my mom had mentioned. A divorce years ago, a son grown and gone. The kind of independence that looked strong from the outside, but carried shadows when the evenings stretched too long. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. The movement pulled her closer again, just enough that I caught the faintest trace of her breath. It brushed against my skin like a secret I wasn't meant to keep. I forced my attention back to the keyboard. "I think it's working now," I said, though I wasn't sure. Her hand touched my shoulder lightly, just enough to make me stop breathing. "You're sweet to help," she murmured. The touch lingered, too casual to call out, too intentional to ignore. Heat spread from where her fingers rested, down my arm, into my chest. I finally turned toward her, and she didn't move away fast enough. Our eyes caught again. This time, neither of us tried to disguise the silence. It wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that. The kind of stillness that said more than words could. Her lips parted slightly, as if she might speak, then closed again. I should have broken it, filled the gap with something ordinary. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. When she finally did move her hand away, it was slow, almost reluctant, and the absence felt louder than her touch had. The screen blinked, the laptop humming steadily. Fixed maybe, but nothing else in that room felt settled. The laptop was fixed. At least, that's what I told her. But neither of us had moved from the table. The house was quiet again, too quiet. Each second of silence felt stretched thin, until even the smallest sound seemed amplified. The hum of the ceiling fan, the faint creak of wood as she shifted in her chair, the way my heartbeat thudded in my own ears. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the computer." I heard something else threaded in there, something heavier. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My eyes flicked to her hand resting close to mine. Inches. A fraction of space that felt unbearable. Then, a buzz shattered the stillness. Her phone lit up on the table. A message. The name of someone we both knew flashing across the screen. My mom. She froze for half a second too long before reaching for it. Her fingers brushed the phone, but she didn't unlock it. Instead, she turned the screen face down, sliding it away. "She'll want to know if everything's working," she said quickly, almost too quickly. Her tone was casual, but her body was tense. I forced a breath. "Do you want me to tell her?" Her eyes darted to mine, sharp, caught between no and yes. Then she shook her head, hair falling slightly across her cheek. "No, not yet." The room pressed in tighter. That "not yet" was heavier than anything else she could have said. She leaned closer again, almost unconsciously, to adjust the laptop. Our shoulders brushed, the lightest contact, but it lit my skin like fire. Neither of us moved away. My words caught before they left my mouth. "You." Her gaze snapped to mine, stopping me cold. There was a question in her eyes, one I didn't know how to answer. My throat tightened, the space between us shrinking until I could see the faint tremor in her lips, the quick rise and fall of her breath. For one reckless heartbeat, I thought she was going to close the gap. Or maybe it was me. I leaned forward slightly, drawn in by something bigger than thought. Her hand gripped the table edge, knuckles pale, like she was anchoring herself. But then, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Close. Too close. We pulled apart instantly, though not fast enough to erase the charge. The door didn't open, the steps faded, but the spell had already fractured. She exhaled, barely a whisper. "This can't happen." But her body betrayed her. She was still leaning toward me, her hand brushing mine again in the smallest, most dangerous slip. I should have moved. I should have agreed. Instead, I stayed still, letting that faint contact bind us in silence. Her eyes softened, the fight in them bending into something else. Not surrender, not yet. But the wall between us was thinner than ever. And when she finally pulled her hand away, her fingers trembled. The distance was there again, but the damage was done. We were closer than before, too close to pretend it hadn't happened. It had been days since I fixed her laptop, but the memory of that night hadn't left me. Every look across the room when I visited, every word she spoke, carried a weight we hadn't named yet. That evening, she was alone again. I told myself I was only stopping by to check if the computer was still working. That was the excuse, anyway. She opened the door slowly, as though she expected someone else. When she saw me, something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe, or something more dangerous? Inside, the air was warmer than usual. She had music playing low, something soft with piano. She poured herself a glass of wine and hesitated before asking, "Do you want one?" I shook my head, though my throat was already dry. We sat near each other on the couch, the laptop closed on the table between us like a prop we no longer needed. She curled one leg beneath her, leaning slightly toward me without realizing. "I shouldn't let you be here this late," she said quietly. Her eyes stayed on her glass, swirling the dark liquid. "People would talk." "I don't care what they'd say," I answered too quickly. That made her finally look at me. The silence stretched, her gaze sharp, searching. "You should care. You're young. You've got everything ahead of you. And you don't." The words slipped out harsher than I meant. She flinched slightly, not from anger, but from truth. Then she set her glass down. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't make this harder." I leaned in before I could stop myself, my hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered a second too long against her skin, the warmth of her cheek burning through me. Her breath caught. "You don't know what you're doing," she said, though her voice trembled. "Then tell me." I whispered back, close enough that she could feel the heat of my words near her ear. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat, leaning ever so slightly toward me. My pulse thundered. Every inch between us felt unbearable, electric. "I've spent years keeping myself in control," she murmured, her voice breaking at the edges. "And then you." She stopped, shaking her head, but her hand found my arm, gripping it as if to steady herself. "Me what?" I asked, desperate, leaning closer until the space between us barely existed. Her lips parted, her forehead almost brushing mine. "You're the problem I can't stop thinking about." The confession cracked the air open. My chest ached with the force of holding back, of wanting more than I dared take. My hand slid to hers, fingers intertwining, both of us trembling. We were right there, so close the world blurred away, so close that one more breath would tip us over the edge. And then, the sound of keys at the front door. She gasped, jerking back, her hand slipping from mine. The music kept playing, oblivious, but everything between us was trembling on the edge of a fall we couldn't undo. The keys at the door never turned. Whoever it was changed their mind, footsteps fading back down the porch. But the moment had already shattered. She stood quickly, smoothing her hair with trembling hands. "You should go," she whispered, not looking at me. I didn't move. My pulse was still racing, my chest still burning from how close we'd been. "I don't want to." Her eyes snapped to mine, sharp, almost panicked. "Don't say that. You don't understand what this could cost." "What could it cost?" I pressed, my voice low. She hesitated, her lips parting, then closing again. For a long moment, she seemed to fight with herself. And then, softer, almost broken, "I've already lost a lot. I can't lose more." The words hit harder than I expected. I thought about the stories I'd half heard. The divorce, the son who rarely called, the way she sometimes sat alone with a glass of wine long after everyone else went home. I stood too, closing the distance without thinking. "You don't have to keep pretending," I said. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't step back. Instead, she laughed, short, bitter, fragile. "You think you're the only one who can't stop thinking about this." That stopped me cold. The confession hung heavy between us, more dangerous than anything yet. I swallowed. "Then why keep pulling away?" Her hands clenched at her sides. Then, as if the weight was too much, she finally admitted, "Because your mother already asked me about you." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. "What?" She noticed, she said quickly, her voice low but urgent. "The way you look at me." She warned me, told me not to encourage it. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might crack. My mother. She already knew. I stepped back, running a hand through my hair, torn between dread and something darker, heavier. "And what did you tell her?" Her silence said more than words could. I turned back to her, breath sharp. She was trembling now, though she tried to hide it. I moved closer again, and when I brushed past her, her body stiffened, not in rejection, but in the unbearable weight of restraint. Her voice cracked. I told her there was nothing, that it was just in your head. The lie burned between us. My chest tightened with anger, shame, longing all at once. But when I stepped closer, her back met the wall, her breath quick and uneven. Our eyes locked, both of us caught in the storm we'd unleashed. She whispered, "That was the only way to protect us." And yet her hand rose, almost without meaning to, fingertips grazing mine in a tremble that betrayed everything she'd just said. It was reckless, it was wrong, but it was also undeniable. I caught her hand in mine, not letting it go this time. "Then stop protecting us," I said quietly. She froze, her lips parting, her body pressed against the wall, and for the first time, she didn't move away. Her back was still against the wall, my hand holding hers. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was alive, charged, pulling us closer with every second we didn't move away. Her eyes searched mine, wide, vulnerable. "You don't know what you're asking," she whispered. "I do," I said, my voice low, almost shaking. "I've known since the first time you leaned over me." Her breath hitched, her lips parting as if to deny it, but no denial came. Instead, she let out the softest sound, half laugh, half broken sigh. "This is madness." I stepped closer, the space between us shrinking until I could feel the heat of her body. My free hand rose almost without my permission, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingertips grazed her cheek, and she leaned into the touch like she hadn't meant to. "It doesn't feel like madness," I murmured. "It feels like the only thing that's real." She closed her eyes, just for a heartbeat, as if letting herself believe it. When they opened again, her voice was quieter, rawer. "If we do this, there's no going back." "Then don't go back," I said. Her chest rose and fell fast now, her breath brushing against my skin. She gripped my shirt with her free hand, not pulling me closer, but not letting go either. Every part of her body contradicted itself, fear and longing fighting in the same heartbeat. I leaned in, my forehead nearly touching hers, my voice a whisper meant only for her. "Tell me to stop, and I will." The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Her hand trembled against me, but she didn't let go. Her lips parted, so close I could feel the faint warmth of her breath. And then, finally, she shook her head. Not a no, a surrender. The moment cracked open. She pressed into me, her grip tightening, her body no longer holding itself back. My arms wrapped around her instinctively, pulling her closer until there was no space left, only the rush of everything we'd held in for too long. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, it was messy, breathless, human. The clash of fear and desire, guilt and relief, all tangled together. When we finally pulled back, just enough to breathe, her eyes were wet but steady on mine. "You shouldn't have let me," she whispered, voice shaking. "You wanted me to," I answered, not as an accusation but as truth. And for the first time, she didn't deny it. The clarity settled between us, fragile, dangerous, but undeniable. We had crossed the line, and both of us knew it. Whatever came next, there was no pretending anymore. The house was quiet again. No footsteps at the door, no interruptions, just the two of us, standing in the aftermath of what couldn't be undone. She leaned against the wall, still breathing unsteadily, her eyes fixed on me like she wasn't sure whether to step closer or push me away. My hand was still on hers, and for once, she didn't try to pull free. "I'm scared," she admitted finally, her voice soft, stripped of all the shields she usually carried. I nodded, my own chest tight. "Me too." Her laugh came low, shaky. "That's not supposed to make me feel better. But it's honest," I said. And that seemed to matter. Because instead of retreating, she let herself relax just enough for her forehead to rest lightly against mine. The smallest, simplest gesture, yet it felt more intimate than anything else we'd done. The world outside of that moment still existed. The whispers of what people would think, the years between us, the risks waiting just beyond her front door. But right then, none of it outweighed the warmth of her leaning into me. Her hand lifted, hesitant, then settled against my chest. "You're too young for this kind of trouble," she whispered. I caught her hand, pressing it more firmly over my heartbeat. "Maybe, but I don't want safe. I want you." She closed her eyes, as though she'd been waiting to hear that and dreading it at the same time. Then she exhaled slowly, the fight inside her finally softening. We moved to the couch, side by side this time, the silence stretching comfortably instead of painfully. Her hand found mine, tentative at first, then firmer, fingers lacing with mine, like she was learning the shape of something she hadn't let herself want in years. For a long while, we didn't need words. The music still played faintly, the same soft piano drifting around us, but it was the quiet between us that mattered. Eventually, she leaned into me fully, her head resting against my shoulder. I pressed a kiss against her forehead, slow and lingering. She let out a small sigh, and in that sound was every unspoken fear, every hidden longing, finally let go. "This won't be easy," she said quietly. I smiled, brushing my thumb over her hand. "Nothing worth it ever is." Her laughter, genuine this time, unguarded, filled the room like a promise. We didn't need to plan what tomorrow would look like. Tonight was enough. Tonight, we were together, and that was real. For the first time since I'd stepped into her living room, I didn't feel like I was fixing something broken. I felt like I'd found the one thing I couldn't bear to lose. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? 30.